another Learn to Read Tarot cards. We're going to do a 3-card reading here. So follow along step by step as I, as a 15-year tarot card reader, will walk you through what I think about as I do a 3-card reading. In this case, we're going to do a tarot card reading on a love or relationship reading for somebody. And these are the cards that I just pulled. And actually, these are very great examples because sometimes as I do a tarot card reading, you will think when you hear the question about whether it's what should I do about this relationship or where is this relationship going to go. And when you have that intention in your head as you're shuffling the cards, let me know. I always think to myself, I kind of say, give me the best information, or let me know what I need to know about the situation as I'm, really set my intention on helping and understanding this situation. And you almost kind of anticipate or expect what types of cards you think will come up just based on the question about a love reading and so forth. And sometimes you're going to get surprised, and those are usually the best readings where like, oh, I didn't expect to see these cards pop out. In this case, if you were with us as we did the last reading, it was a very, I would say, standard love reading where you had a lot of emotional, watery energy, cups energy, and even the high priestess for, your intuition. But in this case, when you see some swords, it can kind of throw you off at first and say, well, what does this have to do with a relationship reading? How do I interpret, swords in this way when I expected more, cups or relationship type cards? In this case, what it says, if someone's asking you, what's the status of this relationship or what should I do about this relationship, it gives me a lot of unique insight because, if you're not dealing with the emotional side or a lot of cups energy, it's a lot of swords, which can be a lot of conflict, or words, which really says you're struggling in this relationship and there's some kind of conflict and stuff going on. So in this case, when I see the 5 of Swords, a 5 in numerology is change. You need to change the way you're approaching this situation because this card on its surface is win the battle but lose the war. So you can see here, dropping some swords, you're kind of, you've won a little bit, but you're losing in the long run, which to me, and a lot of relationship readings, when I see this pop up, says you have this argument or stuff like that. It's a cyclical argument where you really argue it and then you kind of stop arguing it, but you never really resolve it, right? So it's this repetitive argument that kind of keeps coming into the relationship. And what this really says is you got to change the way your communication or your thoughts, otherwise you're going to get in this repetitive pattern, because at the end of the day, neither of you are going to reach your goal. Whatever the conflict is what it could be about. Family planning, who wants kids, who doesn't, where you want to live, all the things that can kind of come up in a relationship. And in this case, what it says is you are not reaching some kind of agreement or compromise on those issues because you're just kind of fighting the same battle back and forth and so forth, and it's not leading towards any progress. So that's why the 5 has come up saying you need to change the way you're communicating or change the way you're thinking, because continuing to fight this circular argument over and over again is not leading you anywhere. And the second card in this reading here being the 8 of Swords, this kind of takes me to the next step, which really says for you, and that's probably the reason why someone came to ask a tarot card reading when I see stuff like this, it says maybe you're sick of having this argument over and over again. Maybe it is on something big for you. You say, well, I can't compromise on this because maybe you want to have kids and the person you're with does not, and that's a fundamental difference that even if you care about each other, that's really important, and not something that you're going to get over with, or you might neither of you may be willing to fully compromise on it for the other person, if that makes sense. So in this case, let's just pretend that's the situation in this one, and you that's why you have this 5 of Swords energy. You keep fighting this back and forth, saying, well, now is the time. Shouldn't we do this? Shouldn't we do that? Whatever the case might be. And you end up with this circular argument that you constantly have but never resolve. And so in that case, what the 8 of Swords is telling you is you might be starting to feel this energy of, oh, well, maybe I should do something different. Maybe I need to take a different step in this. Maybe I need to end this relationship. Because usually in the tarot, when you see houses or castles in the background, it says in order for you, really that's how you want your home life to be. And if you envision your home life with kids or with children and your partner does not, that's a big issue. And that's why maybe in the background here is, that is what you want or represents what you want in the situation. But what the 8 of Swords really tells me is almost like you feeling bound up or trapped. It's almost a ripping the Band-Aid off kind of energy, which is, let's say you say, okay, there's no way long term this relationship is going to work out for me if my partner does not want to have kids and I do, and that's very important to me, and I'm not willing to compromise on that. That's totally fair and very valid. But in this case, you've made a decision like, oh, that means I probably need to end this relationship. And in the long run, that's probably the right decision. But in the short term, the actual act of doing so is so painful that you are hesitating. And so this is someone, I kind of call this my damned if you do, damned if you don't card, because, you know the right thing to do, but it is like ripping off a Band-Aid where it's going to be painful in the short term and cause you a lot of issues. Maybe you're living together. Maybe you got the same circle of friends. Just thinking that the thought process of thinking about how you would unwind this entire relationship is very daunting for you. So even if you know the outcome is good because that's what you want in the long run, you are hesitating to actually make that happen. And I can tell you, as a 15-year tarot card reader, people can sit in this hesitation in this area of not doing anything for years or maybe even a decade, right? So what that tells you is that this energy is really tough to come with. It's like we all want to seek pleasure and avoid pain, but even if we know the pain is for good for us in the long run, it can be really hard in order to feel the suffering or feel the pain in the short term. And we sometimes bury it down or try to avoid it at all costs because we know it's painful in the short term. But that's never the right decision in the long run, because if you really want, have a family and raise and so forth, you need to make a break. If you're just not gonna, compromise on the situation, and you don't think you're gonna get any kind of agreement from your current partner. However, this really says you are hesitating and it is daunting for you, and that's probably the reason you came to a tarot card reading and get some kind of clarity or just reassurance that you are making the right decision, or to get a boost of confidence to actually do what is difficult, because it is going to be difficult to rip that Band-Aid off and move on. But in the long run, it's going to be the right decision for you, because you're going to get the better outcome, or at least the outcome more aligned with what you want to be. And this is really where I would focus someone, is the next card here, the Ace of Cups, is a very positive card, especially in relationship readings, because aces are ones in numerology, which is new beginnings. So this is a new beginnings in a relationship. So this would say, if you are willing to take the step and end this relationship, you might say, well, I got further away from my goal because I'm not even with someone, let alone have the family that I want. And this set can actually go two different ways. When the Ace of Cups comes up, because it's a new beginning in something very emotional, something you love, something like a goal. So this could be a new person, a new relationship coming in and say, hey, you might exit this relationship and pretty quickly find yourself in a new relationship, and it might be the right one for you, or you two are more aligned on your future plans, whether that is you want to have kids or whatever the case might be. You're going to feel more resonated with that. It's going to resonate with you because you are actually aligned, versus you've been living this kind of conflict where you knew you had different plans for the future, for whether you wanted family and kids or whatnot, but you kind of put that aside or pushed it down in the beginning because you like each other and you want to have a relationship, and that's totally fine. But over the long run, that's going to seep back in. But the other way of sometimes seeing the Ace of Cups, especially in relationship readings, is it can be a new beginning. It can be a pregnancy in some cases. In some terms, I'd probably want to see more cards or more clarification cards before I would jump out on that limb in this situation. But it might say, I would say it's very clearly the energy would be is, as painful as it would be to leave the relationship, you might be surprised with how quickly you meet someone who is aligned. So maybe it's not a pregnancy, but it's being in the relationship with someone or meeting someone who wants the same thing that you do, right? And just imagine how that would feel. Is like you meet someone, you're like, oh, I'm not into casual dating because I really want to find somebody and settle down and have a family. And the other person's like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to. I really want to be, a dad or whatever the case might be. So that is where the hope for this person, and maybe the reason for the tarot card reading and how it can be so helpful for them, is they're stuck in this hesitation. They have been living in this cycle, in this loop for so long without making any progress because they're too afraid. They're damned if they do, damned if they don't. They're too afraid to actually make the decisions that they need to make to move forward. However, this is the clarity they may need. If you knew that you would find yourself on the right track, or meeting the right people, or finding yourself dating someone who has more similar values or aligned to you or wants the same goals, you are going to feel so much better and more emotionally fulfilled because you feel like you have a partner. You feel like you're in sync. You have common goals, rather than fighting to try to force someone to compromise away from what they want and give them what you want, or given what you want and give it to what they want. So that's really what I see in this from the reading. So when someone were to ask me this question, I see this pop up. This is what kind of goes through my head in a short period of time, hopefully only 10 to 30 seconds before I start the reading with somebody, because I've seen these cards and they're all like, 78 friends with inside jokes with me. But I would see this, and that's why when you see these cards and you see tarot card readers say, well, these are not the cards I expected at all to come out of a relationship reading. I didn't expect so many swords. I expected to see more cups and, maybe emotional frustration, whatever the case might be. That's why once you know this and you kind of go through this process, you really see how valuable this reading is. Even just a 3-card reading, that's kind of what I want to get people to to do. I would tell you, if you can read 2 cards, you can read any spread, as I teach in my tarot reading course. However, if 3-card reading for someone, this amount of information is super valuable and super helpful, especially if someone recognizes they're in this endless loop or endless cycle that doesn't seem to end, and they don't have the strength or courage right now to actually rip off the Band-Aid and do what they need to do, and they're hesitating on making the right decision for themselves, and they're coming to you to seek the validation and the clarity for them, and you can give them the reassurance that yes, what you see is at least a more aligned vision, a new beginning, that maybe you're not all the way on the journey going to get married right now, but at least you are spending your time and your energy with people who are more aligned in what you want in the future, and that's going to really be emotionally fulfilling for you as you go through that process.